Scooby-Doo ending. Woo.
Right. And now there we are talking about Scooby-Doo, right? When we go live and everyone's like, oh, they were just having munchies and snacks. So welcome to 24 Authors in 12 Hours. We are wrapping up. We are on our final 3 authors. I would like to introduce Petra Costa and her book, Return of the Sleeping Warriors. Petra, why don't you share with us what inspired you?
Oh, this is the funny thing. Mine comes from that atypical, I had a dream, and it was actually a physical dream. I'm a big dreamer. I'm like have about 6, 7 dreams every night. And we were on holidays with my sister and brother-in-law. And every morning I'd come down to the kitchen table and basically tell the stories of the dreams I'd had the night before. And I'm not a good sleeper. I don't, a bit of a night owl. It takes me, not quite an insomniac, but pretty close to it. And this was about the 3rd day of holidays, and I was recounting the latest dream that I've had. My brother-in-law says to me, maybe if you write all of this down, and maybe if you write some of these dreams down, you would better be able to sleep. You'd get a better night's sleep. And I said, okay, fine. Didn't think much of it. We came back from holidays. Literally on the Monday, I sent him a text through saying, I'm up to chapter 3. And he said, chapter 3 of what? And I said, oh, chapter 3 of the book you told me to write. And that's where it started. It was simply just trying to get the dream out of my head. It was a very, very simple, a simple image that I had of this magical creature that had been created from the mud of the land that he was ever destined to protect, and the blood of the ancient magic wielders created this warrior. And it was all about duty, and it was all about the almost star-crossed lovers, that he would never be able to really love someone because he hadn't been born. He'd been magicked into existence. And that became a book series.
I love that you say magicked into existence, right? Like, well, that's a struggle, right? You're like, oh,
it's a little bit easier than having in the real way, though, isn't it?
It definitely is, right?
If I would happily, if someone said, would you like to magic your children into existence? Yes, actually, I really would.
You're like, yes, kind of a little bit of a shortcut. And why don't we share? I kind of jumped into the middle of this because I have so much amazing energy right now after doing nothing but drinking coffee all day. Is you are in the middle of your morning, right? So what time is it for you right now?
It is 8:30 in the morning here in Melbourne. The birds are just chirping outside my window.
And so for those of you who have been listening all day, we started with Australia. We're going to be ending with Australia. We do have RK Byers. He's going to be filling in. I did update the website last minute because we did have a cancellation and he had some tech problems this morning. So everything's going to work out. And it's absolutely phenomenal to have so many fantastic authors. I want to continue this journey for you. I'm going to put your website in here. And one of the things I love about author websites is you really start to find out more of the behind the scenes. And so you said this came from a dream. So do you use structured? Is it completely unstructured? Or how do you actually go into that writing process?
Well, I just basically started the book with the and it wasn't even the main character in the dream. My daughter was the character that met this warrior. But when I started writing the book, it was actually around like my son's, a character styled around my son. And I was doing it just as not a joke, but just to get the thoughts out of my head. And once I started writing this, it just, a pathway opened up in front of me of how the story was going to go. And literally it took me I'm not a fast writer, but it took me about 3 months to get about 120 words down of this story from start to finish. That just went in directions that I wasn't expecting it to go in, and I just let it go. I just let it flow out of me. So it was just a very starting, simple concept of this warrior that was born. And I'm very much into mythology. I love all different kinds of mythology. So straight away when I thought that, I go, oh, you're dreaming of the sleeping warriors. That's like a concept through time that we have, Arthurian legend and all of that kind of stuff. Incorporate that in. And that's what the series came to be about. That I was incorporating these mythologies and mythos from different traditions that just seem to sort of like rumble under the surface of almost all cultures around the world. I tried to thread that through, but in a very modern day setting, because I write very conversationally. It's very easy to read.
And who is your audience that you want to for this book to read?
I'm not really one of those. I'm not very good at marketing. I love to write, and all the rest of it sort of has to work it out itself. I wrote a book that I would really love to read, but I also made it. My ideal audience is probably about 14 to 17-year-olds. But if some, I've got a lot of people. My biggest fans actually are 11, 12, 13-year-olds. But it's when I find what happens is aunties and uncles are buying the book for their nieces and nephews, and they all read it and they all find something in it on different levels, because it's just an urban fantasy for young adult. But I must admit, the book's written for what I want to read. To be honest, I'm my ideal audience.
No, that's super interesting. But I definitely want to highlight. We've had a couple authors. One of the ones we had earlier was Gigi Limke, who also writes in that kind of like young adult audience, and that is a different audience than adults, right? Like if you read my work and you're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have prostitutes and brothels, to the 14-year-old, and so I just want to make sure we're very clear that these are young adult novels and geared towards those where you're not going to have to worry about spicy scenes.
You don't. Not at all. I don't think I could write it. I think I'd blush too much through the whole process of trying to write romance into my books. So no, they're just a fantasy. It's a modern day setting. It's actually in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, and magic is coming into the world, like Arthurian style magic. And as it comes back into the world, people of the bloodline, the correct bloodline, are finding they've got magical powers that are presenting. And they're very personality based. So it's not just we all go around with a wand and learn some Latin. It's much more, if someone loves to cook, they might become a person that's very good at making potions. If someone likes to craft, they might be the person that does the poppets and does the sewing, stitching, binding magic. So it's all, and that was fascinating because I did write it around my, basic family structure. And it was fascinating for me to try to work out who would be what kind of magic system, what would come up for each personality as being how they presented.
And I think that that's a really important concept. And so a lot of today has been about dystopian fiction, post-apocalyptic fiction. And why does this fit in? People might be like, this is urban fantasy. But when you look at urban fantasy, like, how dystopian would it be if suddenly everybody started having magic powers? Like, that would be like surreal. You would just be like, how is this happening? Right. And so I think that that's definitely a form to think about. Like, what is this future of mutant powers, magic powers, and so sometimes when you look at like Marvel comics, they're very famous for these kind of mutant powers where people evolve. And I think that this is such a cool concept that people evolve into this magic. There was a show that came out a couple years ago called The Power, which was based on a book. And it's like where these women suddenly develop this power, right? Where they can like electrocute people, and part of their kind of protection mechanism. But this is kind of this whole different level of like magic powers coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fun thing is, at the start of the series, everyone's getting their powers, but it's a family unit that's getting the powers. Yes, there's an ancient evil, that is woken, that walks through their dreams and causes them troubles. But all of the humans that they know that are getting the magic powers, they're all good guys. And they're starting to come into the realization that, oh, hang on, because that's cool, right? That's cool. We can now do this and we can do that. But when they start realizing that obviously other people are going to have this magic boost coming through to them as well, and they might not have the same great intentions, and their powers might not be the greatest of powers. So you get that realization coming through the series of, okay, this might not end well.
Such an important point. Let's talk about the writing process again, a bit more about how you got here. So a lot of times you kind of think this is the direction it's going to go, and then the story takes a different turn. Were there any characters or scenes or story arcs that just kind of, you're like, I had no idea this is the direction I was going in?
Yeah, 100%. I've got a character. It's a vampire, and his job was to come in one point in time. He had to do one thing, which was, literally suck some, poison out of somebody. That's all he had to do to purify a body. But I just sort of kind of had a little bit of a crush on him and fell in love with the character a little bit. That's the character. I've got a whole set of cards. Lorcan comes into the books, and he was so fascinating. He had such personality, and he just gave it this older dimension, because where the books are based around a 14 and a 16-year-old siblings, brother and sister, duo that take on the world. And you have this sort of like more mature, he's thousands of years old, and he's got a completely different set of morals. He was only supposed to be in one chapter to do one job, and he's now become a very major character. And I can guarantee the first spin-off I ever write will be about this particular character because he's fascinating.
It's really interesting that you say that, because somebody else was like, you write this character and suddenly they become like a page stealer and they just start taking up your time.
And I just adore him, and I'm so glad it happened, because it's given the series a depth that it might not have had if we were just sticking with the 14 and 16-year-old, because it's adding different perspectives to it and different moralities, and it's easy to talk through moral questions when you're talking to a vampire. I know that sounds crazy, but it's okay if they think a little bit outside of the box, or move into gray areas, because they're a vampire after all. So it's been really fun having him come into the series.
I love this. I'm working on my next book is strictly magical, and I'm working with the whole vampire and goblin kings and some people. And I'm like, well, it's okay because he's a vampire. I mean, yeah, this is what happens, right? And it's a very, very different thing when you're dealing with these magical creatures of, like you said, these thousands of years old, and that's a whole different perspective. Let's talk a little bit about the challenge of, you write the book is awesome. Of course it's awesome. You wrote it, right? Now you've got the challenge of editing, publishing, and marketing your book. How has that experience been for you, Petra?
It's been really hard. I wrote the original book, and it was from start to finish, put it in a drawer, didn't do much with it, talked about it with a lot of people. Just happened to be a lady that was getting her nails done at the same place I was getting my nails done, was a writing coach. So I worked with her, Rose and Sarah, for a little bit, and we worked it through. And she said, "Sweetheart, I hate to break the news to you. This isn't one book." So I basically wrote the outline in one book with my first go. And then we have now been extending that out. And that's where we're at 3 books. And I think it's going to be a 5-book series, because I still haven't reached that end yet, because there've been so many characters that have come in. But she worked with me for about a year, just giving me what I needed, the direction I needed on how to really structure a book correctly, with lots of different things. And then I actually didn't want to do it all myself. So there's like a hybrid publisher in Melbourne called Busy Bird Publishing, and they were wonderful in holding my hand. They organized editors for me, cover designs, and all of that kind of stuff. And then you just get it out into the world. And that was my journey.
I love you sharing that. The person I had on before you was actually James Woosley, who does Free Agent Press, and this is a person who's helped me to publish. And I love this hybrid publishing, people who help you to get out there. But in this world, as you and I both know as authors, there's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of people who are, out there to just take your money. So how were you able to distinguish that this was like a legitimate organization? Can you share that with people who are?
Well, there's the thing. I was very, very lucky that the person that took me under their wing knew of them and had worked with and around them. She was a published author. So she had gone through traditional routes, but she knew of Busy Bird Publishing, which was literally, it's only 10 minutes from where I live, and had introduced me to them and discussed it with them. And all they're about is providing the services, because they've got, a whole lot of editors on staff and different people on staff. And you basically just go in there and they match you up with someone that works well with you. Although I'm sure that my editor, he's worked with me for 3 books now, I'm sure he would wish he had been paired up with someone differently, because I'm not the easiest person to work with. But no, they've been amazing. And so I was just lucky to get pointed in their direction, and that's why every chance I get, I'll point other people in that direction of Busy Bird Publishing. I found they've been amazing.
I really want to highlight this for people out there, is go to other authors, ask them what they've used, what they found also didn't work, right? Because there are just so many people out there. The world has changed. I started publishing, a decade ago, and the amount of just I'm just going to call them creepers out there on social media who they're immediately like, I see that you have a book, and you're like, yes, yes, I do. And you obviously have not read it. You've paid no attention to it. So no, I don't want you to promote a book when you can't even bother to read it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like my inbox is full of people, coming at me. Oh, I need to get you in front of book groups. I need to get you in front of here. Oh, your work's amazing. I've had a look at your website, and you're just so talented. I can't believe this, that, and the other. And I'm like, dudes, please, just just leave me be. But look, I'm not great when it comes to marketing. I've only just started getting into that space and doing book events. We're doing Comic Cons, doing supernovas, doing all of these different events. And I'm finding the indie book community. I've got a wonderful event, an indie bookworm event that I'm going to on the 23rd of August. I'm finally finding them. And I was a bit slack because I thought there's no point doing it when I've got one book. But now that I've got three, I need to be a little bit more serious about it. So I am trying to do 7 or 8 book events a year. And it's been amazing just getting out there and getting the feedback from people that have bought the first book, coming back to get the second and third. It's been amazing. But I haven't got that much advice in marketing in general because I'm not very good at it, to be honest.
No, you've actually given some just really, really great advice. And so you touched on something, and I think this is super important as an author. You've talked a lot about this concept of, of you write books that you love, but what kind of conversations do you want your readers to talk about? And how do you want them to be inspired? And what do you want them to take away from your works?
Oh, this is a really important one for me, and this is where I probably get a little bit more serious than I need to be. When I was writing the books, I was writing them for something that I would be happy for my kids to read, that was sending messaging in that I was happy for my kids to read. And I was seeing a lot of the stuff that was popular in their circles around the time. I didn't like the content. It was glamorizing things that I didn't think should be glamorized, whether it was suicidal thoughts, whether it was, you know, relationships where you could see the people weren't good for each other. And we all know how the bad guy, girl relationship can be too much for that age group. I don't think I didn't like it. So I wanted to create an environment where you actually have a supportive family. There's no bad uncle that's putting people under the stairs or treating them badly. It is just a really supportive family environment. Yeah, they have really horrible things happen to them, but it's all external. It's all coming from magical creatures and magical forces, or just actually not very nice people outside. But I wanted to really send the message that when I was looking at it, and I did think about getting traditionally published. And the first thing I was told was kill off your parents. You either have to have an abusive parent, they have to be orphaned, or you have to create some kind of trauma in the lives of these children so that the other children that read it will connect to it. And I'm like going, no, look, I don't want to do that. There's enough trauma out there in the world. I want to get into the kids' minds and their imaginations, and I want them to like these characters and see that supporting each other is fantastic. And the characters I've got in my book, they shine because they were always going to. It's not that they didn't have to be put through trauma and that's the reason they shine. They shine because they were always going to. So I wanted to speak to those young kids that don't have trauma in their lives to realize you're still shining. You're still shining. It's just I didn't like that glamorization of the fact. I know trauma happens, don't get me wrong, I understand that. But I really wanted to send that messaging out that families can be really supportive, and you can have people in your life when they say, I've got your back, they actually have your back. And sometimes that's, if you're blessed, that's your family.
I love that you just said that because I think that so often it's like the dysfunction lives, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not going to name names. I think we all know what series I'm going to talk about, but it's like the 1,000-year-old vampire with the 16-year-old high school girl. And I was like, this just makes my skin crawl. This is just not acceptable to me on so many levels. And when my stepdaughters got into that series, I was like, oh, I just cringed because I was like, this is not healthy relationships. And the fact that you focus on healthy relationships, and there's nothing wrong with saying this is healthy, this is goodness, this is wholesome, and saying, hey, you know what, like here's a family against the world. And I think that it's okay. There's going to be family drama. We all have
Mm,
the, fights with our mom or whatever, but that can be the minimal little fight, about, oh, you didn't get your homework done, so now you can't go out to a party, or whatever, versus kill off the parents, or like you said, like lock them up and have this abuse, like that normalizes abuse, which I don't think is really healthy. And I
no.
think that the fact that you were bold and said, no, like, I'm going to stick to my core, there's a
Yep.
lot of value in that.
Yep, and it look, I didn't even realize I was doing it at the time. I just said that there's no way that I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna, especially because these are the characters are based around my family. I don't mind them putting them in like a little dungeon and then getting tortured by some dark imps that have come out and raised their ugly head. That's fine because that's never gonna happen. But I also wanted to be I didn't want the only way the kids out there that were reading the books to find a point of connection was through trauma. I wanted them to be able to find a point of connection with these characters because there was everyday normal personality traits. They like soccer. They love this. They, are always, raiding the pantry and the kitchen. All of those normal things is where I wanted the point of connection to come from. And I've had, 11-year-old boys at book fairs that have bought the series, gone off, been sitting under a tree for an hour reading the series when they've got jazz bands and everything going on around them, to come running back over to me and saying, "Oh, Petra, I love Michael. He's such a cool character. But I don't like the kid next door," kind of thing. And I'm going, "That's great. That's exactly what I want you to be feeling."
And I think that it's important to recognize, and that's where I think indie authors really shine, is there are different niches out there for each of us. And the nice thing is I am over here in Gary, Indiana in America, talking to you over there in Melbourne, Australia. Like, we have a global community now that we have the ability to have these platforms.
100%.
So I am actually going to take that as kind of a segue to just say how much I appreciate you on 24 Authors in 12 Hours. And I am going to go ahead and highlight this into the post. If anybody is interested, this is an author helping author event. Nobody is paid. Nobody had to pay to be here or anything like that. And so if you want to donate, we accept donations, appreciate donations, help keep the platform running and stuff. But in the end, we want people to have good books, good book options, and want to make sure that we're able to keep that going. We also have some merchandise. So if anybody's interested in like coffee mugs or water bottles, 24 Authors in 12 Hours, and just promoting the great sense of having virtual book festivals, where this wonderful international book festival going on around the world. And the last thing I'm going to do is share with everybody my most recent book, which is Decoding History. And what I really like about this new book, it is a fiction book. It is not YA. Like I said, this is totally not appropriate for all audiences. It is really what I therapeutically dealt with as an American. Few months looking at how all of our data is being erased off of the internet, and looking at the Librarian of Congress getting fired and a lot of the actions going on. And so I took the reality, feeling very overwhelmed, and I said, I'm going to channel this into a book. And so this book is absolutely free right now in the EPUB version. So you can get it if you're Kindle Unlimited, you can get it for free whenever. And right now, if you're not Kindle Unlimited, but you want a copy, it is free for today only. And I'm going to shamelessly plug one more time for all authors. Please leave us reviews. Reviews are the bread and butter of getting to the top of the algorithms. I put Petra's links in here for Amazon, but Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes and Nobles, all the things. Go in, leave author reviews. If you're wondering what can I get my favorite author for their birthday or Christmas, what they want is an author review, even if they don't tell you that.
100%.
Okay, Petra, we are wrapping up. We're going to go to our next author. Very, very excited. We've got 2 authors left of the evening, your morning. Hopefully, you're going to have a fantastic day. What do you want to leave our 24 authors in 12 hours audience with?
Oh, just check out my website, have a look at the books. I've also got an oracle deck that is actually quite unique. It's based on the characters and settings. It's all my own artwork. So just go and have a look. And thank you so very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone else. We will be back in about 5 minutes with our next author interview.